Good morning, everyone. Your morning weather briefing for Wednesday, June 6th finds that there are no major changes in the forecast versus what I presented yesterday. I think that you can also see when looking at my temperature and rainfall forecast that there are very few changes in these maps versus what I showed yesterday. Still plenty of heat in the forecast for the next week to 10 days before temperatures moderate in the 11 to 15 day time frame, and still rainfall chances as well. I would also consider those rainfall forecast maps as very similar to what I presented 24 hours ago. QPF discussion this morning. I think that this forecast overall is too wet. Is it going to rain in the near term in the Corn Belt? Well, certainly it is. Are there going to be significant totals in portions of the Corn Belt? Absolutely. Are there going to be some heavy rains in some areas? Absolutely. But going for such a widespread solid area of 2 to 4 inch rains in Iowa just seems like quite a stretch to me. I also think that this map is a little bit too wet with regards to rainfall amounts in Kansas. For the QPF discussion for the day 6 to 7 time frame, I don't think that there's too much difference between the placement of rainfall between the European and GFS models this morning. I think that this map would overall tend to be more like the GFS operational model. Have to consider it as little more than a guess, so it will change a lot in the days ahead. Temperatures yesterday certainly saw some warming taking place in the Corn Belt. High temperatures getting above 90 degrees in a sizable portion of the western Corn Belt, and also saw some 100-degree temperatures yesterday in portions of the Plain States. 18-hour rainfall totals through 1 o'clock this morning. Not too much had occurred since that time, but we have started to see some thunderstorm activity working its way into the northwestern Corn Belt since around midnight this morning. You can see that on the radar estimated rainfall map, and you can certainly see it even better with regards to the look of the radar this morning. Extensive shower and thunderstorm activity in Minnesota, and also working its way into northwestern portions of Iowa. Keep this radar map on your mind. We're going to be coming back to it again in just a little bit. Ahead of the rainfall that we have in the 2-week forecast, let's keep in mind the areas that need the rainfall the most right now. When you look at this map and note the extensive area that has not seen normal rainfall over the last 2 weeks, I think it is a situation where almost anyone in the Corn Belt would appreciate rainfall right now, but certainly some places need the rain more than others. Southeastern Iowa, northeastern portion of Missouri, western Illinois would be one such area, and then an area from Indiana and Ohio would be another area that really needs to see some good rains over the next 2 weeks, given how dry it has been recently. Now, again, I wanted you to remember what that radar looked like this morning. Let's take a look and see how some of the models did with regards to the rainfall forecast during the overnight hours. A lot of debate right now on which model in the near term is going to be doing better on the rainfall forecast. Obviously, the European model as of late has been a lot drier than the GFS, and that has created a lot of argument, especially in social media in recent days. But let's just take a look here this morning and see how the models did already just on the 12-hour rainfall forecast. Again, keep in mind that we saw and are seeing right now extensive shower and thunderstorm activity in Minnesota and even into northern Iowa. So let's see which models did the best in that rainfall last night. Well, here's the NAM short-range model in the upper left. At least it showed some rainfall getting into northern Iowa, but I think that the activity this morning is more than it would have suggested. Here's the NAM high-resolution model. Again, at least it showed some rain in Iowa and Minnesota by 7 o'clock this morning and showed some pockets of good amounts. I guess maybe you could give that a passing grade. Canadian ensemble, I'd call that a swing and a miss. European ensemble, swing and a miss. GFS operational model, well, at least it showed the rain, but clearly the rains overnight were not as big in eastern South Dakota and southeastern North Dakota as it showed. European operational model, swing and a miss. You can see from these maps here that, in my mind, it's just not a real wise idea to spend a lot of time in looking at the precipitation forecast from the individual models given the pattern that we are in. Again, here's a 12-hour forecast, and you can say that the models at best did a passing grade, but I think that the vast majority of them, you'd have to give them a failing grade, and in some models just an abject failure, given that they totally missed the rains that are occurring right now in Minnesota and northern Iowa. The lesson that I'm trying to tell you from this is that let's not be spending a lot of time in looking at these rainfall forecasts from the various models going forward, especially as you get later on in the forecast period. A lot of them failed on a 12-hour forecast. Why should we believe them 4, 5, 6 plus days down the road? As far as the rainfall forecast is concerned, here's one of the short-range high-resolution models on how it believes that the radar is going to be looking in the Corn Belt as of 7 o'clock this evening. The activity that we have on the radar this morning is likely going to be diminishing this morning. We will see activity firing up again this afternoon. Here's one model that says it would be southeastern Iowa, seeing the bulk of that activity for late this afternoon and continuing during the nighttime hours. Certainly that rain, if it would verify, would be hitting an area of the Corn Belt that really needs it right now. Longer term, I still see a lot of rainfall chances in the forecast for the next 10 days on this ring of fire setup. As of 7 o'clock in the morning on Friday, European model, GFS model, Canadian model, European ensemble. 7 o'clock in the morning on Saturday. There's the various rainfall threats that the models show. Let's skip ahead a few days. 7 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday. Some agreement at that time that we'd maybe see an actual system passing through the Corn Belt at that time. Bottom line, again, lots of rainfall chances in the 10-day forecast. Again, let's look at these 10-day rainfall forecasts from the various models, as I'm sure everyone will, and let's just compare and contrast them. Again, this morning, it is the European model and to some extent the European ensemble that is suggesting the most limited range. You can see that the European model for at least a decent portion of the Corn Belt suggesting under a half-inch of rainfall during the next 10 days. You'd have to consider that forecast is a little bit wetter than yesterday, though. European ensemble, a lot of the Corn Belt under 3/4 of an inch. Again, that model too would be wetter than it was yesterday. GFS operational in the upper left, of course, going for the biggest rains. I still tend to believe that if you want to look at precipitation forecasts from the models, I think that it's best to probably look at the GFS ensemble, Canadian ensembles. Those would probably have the best overall look to the rainfall outlook for the next 10 days. It's a situation where we're going to be seeing ring of fire rains on almost any day during the next 10 days. Significant rains on most any days for a portion of the Corn Belt. Some portion of the Corn Belt potentially seeing heavy amounts of rainfall on any given day. Is there going to be any one day in which we see this big widespread rainfall event everywhere in the Corn Belt? Absolutely not. But when you consider that we're looking at ring of fire rains over an entire 10-day period, if not even longer than that, that a portion of the Corn Belt on most any day will see significant amounts. Some portion of the Corn Belt on most any day could see heavy rainfall amounts. All of that combined just leads me to believe that over the next 10 days, the vast majority of the Corn Belt has at least a chance of significant rain, and most of the region will indeed eventually see that significant rainfall amount. And even as we get into the 11 to 15 day period, there will continue to be rainfall chances, and model agreement is good on those rainfall chances, probably the best amounts, and best amounts with respect to normal probably favoring the eastern Corn Belt versus the west. So bottom line, there are no shortages of rainfall chances in the 2-week forecast. This is not a dry pattern. With regards to the temperature forecast, heat going to be seen over a bigger portion of the Corn Belt for this Wednesday. Note the extensive area of 90, even 95 plus degree heat in the southwestern third to as much as half of the Corn Belt and areas to the south of there. As we get towards the temperatures situation for Sunday, note the extensive area of 90 to 95 plus degree heat, even some isolated areas of 100 plus degree temperatures in the southern Corn Belt, but notice that to the north of there, highs just in the 70s. Big battle zone of air masses in between would probably enhancing rainfall activity as we get towards Sunday. A change in the forecast today is a brief period of moderating temperatures for around the Tuesday-Wednesday timeframe of next week. Note from the European model for Tuesday, 90-degree temperatures that day largely absent from the Corn Belt with any sort of 90-plus degree heat pushed further southward. So that is a change in the forecast today. A brief 1 to 2 day period of moderating temperatures for around Tuesday, Wednesday. Temperatures would warm up again after that for the final days of the 11 to 15, or final days of the 6 to 10 day period for especially June 14th through the 16th, but like yesterday's forecast, still looking at moderating temperatures for the middle and latter portion of the 11 to 15 day period. 500 millibar charts as of 7 o'clock in the evening on June 18th. This is a time frame that we've been looking at ever since the video from back on Friday. Note that any heat, any ridging at that time shoved way into western and northwestern portions of the nation. A trough of low pressure, European, should say Canadian and GFS models indicating a very significant trough of low pressure at that time in the middle of the country. Even the European ensemble, though still showing some semblance of a trough. Bottom line is that there is good model agreement and good model consistency today that once we get beyond June 16th, we are looking at a more moderate temperature regime, more normal temperatures for a bigger portion of the nation for middle and latter portions of the 11 to 15 day time frame. Internationally this morning, no changes in Brazil. Dry season is taking control in the northern Safrina corn areas. Good rains over the next 2 weeks in the south. In Europe, normal to above normal rainfall during the next 2 weeks. Best rainfall amounts as you go further south and southwest, with France looking at exceptionally good rainfall over the next 2 weeks. Maybe that would be a hindrance towards their winter grain harvesting ongoing, but obviously would be beneficial to the summer row crops in France. Former Soviet Union, strictly below normal rainfall there for the next 2 weeks, especially dry in the 1 week time frame. Spring grain areas of the former Soviet Union, especially areas to the north of central and western portions of Kazakhstan, seeing big rainfall amounts during the next 10 days. Warmth for the next 1 to 2 days in the spring wheat areas, but turning colder again by Friday, and that cold weather will last for the rest of the 2 week time frame. In China, wetter forecast going to be seen in Manchuria coming up for the next 2 weeks, near to above normal rainfall, with that rainfall spread out quite evenly amongst the 1 to 5, 6 to 10, and 11 to 15 day periods. Not an especially wet pattern though for the North China Plain. Would be good though for winter wheat harvesting ongoing in that area. Forecast for Canada, Canadian Prairie still looks very favorable. Not a lot of rainfall there for the rest of this week, but some rain returning by Sunday, and you can see that additional rains there in the 6 to 10 day time frame, giving them nice rains for the 10-day forecast period as a whole. Going to be seeing a lot of warmth in the Canadian prairies for tomorrow through Saturday. You can see the temperatures there for Saturday running 10 to 20 degrees above normal, but beyond next Monday, though, would be coming a cooler weather pattern with more normal temperatures for the week 2 portion of the 2 week time frame. What we need right now in Australia is clearly a weather pattern that features widespread above normal rainfall. That is still not in the forecast. Look at mostly below normal rainfall for the next 2 weeks. In western growing areas, normal rainfall at best. In the eastern growing areas, with some areas still running subnormal. Finally, this morning in India, looks like an active weather regime, an active monsoon in India for the week 1 time frame, but notice how the monsoon really weakens in the week 2 period. That's what I have for this morning. Everyone have themselves a great day.